From Evoke Media, I'm Sabrina Mirage Naeem. With me is Cassia Binkowski, and this is Breaking Glass, a series of conversations with women around the world who are shattering glass ceilings and challenging social norms. They are audacious, gutsy, and their stories are echoed across borders and generations in a rallying cry that is changing the narrative for women everywhere. Today's conversation takes us to Vancouver, Canada, where we're speaking to Norma Bastidas, but we're really starting our story in Sinaloa, Mexico, where her story began. She has endured every kind of sexual assault and violence you can imagine. I'm telling you, you have never heard a story like this before. But today, she is actually the Guinness World Record holder for longest triathlon, utilizing her platform to raise awareness on sex trafficking, human trafficking, and these issues that are still so rampant around the globe. This is one of the most incredible stories I think we've ever heard.
Her story is one of bravery and strength, but more than that, it's one of creating a space to talk about this issue, to talk about human trafficking, which is happening all around us every single day, but isn't generally given the space or the voice or acknowledged in a way that creates meaningful action. I mean, her story of strength and resilience is unlike any that we've ever shared on the show.
Take a listen. Norma, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, no, thank you, Sabrina.
We're really excited to talk to you and hear about your really extraordinary story and your journey to becoming an activist and a world record holder. But let's start with your childhood. You were born in Sinaloa, Mexico, where violence and the cartels run rampant. Today, Sinaloa is known as the narco state. And your childhood was really one of much turmoil. What can you tell us about growing up in Sinaloa?
It's just such a interesting question because, growing up in Sinaloa and the turmoil, for so long it was normalized that I really didn't think it was a global issue or that it was going to become such a known area for, violence against women, but also violence in general, the cartels. I never thought it was going to be prominent, mostly because we were born, we didn't have a lot of money when my father died. So, our survival was, the most important thing than thinking about what was happening in terms of the cartels and the prominence. And I have a lot of great memories because, I love Sinaloa. I love the people. I love the country that I grew in. But also, I think that the most prevalent memories that I have, it is the violence, like witnessing shootings. I think my first shooting that I witnessed was going to the store to get things for my mother. And, I think I was about probably 9. And it was, because I lived exactly in the area where the cartels form. So, that was something that it was normal. And it is sad that I knew what to do. If there was a shooting and there was somebody that, in my area, I knew what to do, how to behave in a way that, even as a 7, 9-year-old, how to behave in a way that I wasn't going to be retaliated against. Just simply not making eye contact, just becoming invisible, not telling anybody until I get home and things like that. So it is sad because, Mexico and Sinaloa in particular is such a beautiful country with beautiful people. But, that is my early memories is of the cartels taking over our town.
Right. And something that most children would never be exposed to, having to understand what to do when there's a shooting around you. It's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, murders. Yeah, all the things too. That actually permanently led, kind of added to the trajectory of my life and the choices that I made. It's like the violence escalated not only from shootings, but sexual violence, being, especially, being a young woman who needed to go to school and also needed to have a part-time job as a 13, 14-year-old, cleaning a dance studio where they gave me free lessons, but I had to clean it and taking, the bus home and having to walk it. It just became a Russian roulette because it was either the federales picking me up and sexually assaulting you, or the cartels. So it was a normal occurrence, and it was dealt with a way that it was, add to the victim behavior that I exhibit for so long, because in a way it was true. It wasn't just my mentality. It was just the most important thing for my mother to teach me was to survive an assault, not to prevent it, because we had absolutely no way of preventing it. It happened around us. So it was what to do, just not to fight back. And I mean, things like my mom giving us, safety pins so we can stop, like pinch people in the bus, because, it was just like the groping was constant and every day. My mom always used to put a little bobby pin. It's like when they start grinding behind you, just stop. Like things like that, that it just got normalized. And it was just simply like, we never questioned that this is something that should happen. It was just kind of like, it's going to happen. And, this is what you need to do. So it is, and that's the reason my whole focus became on trying to get education, or how do I live how do I, live this area? Because it was, to me, the problem was where we were living. And, of course, later I learned that it was a global problem.
And your mother was an advocate for that, right? She wanted you to get an education. She wanted you to start your career. I mean, she was a real advocate for you not getting married early, and having real opportunity. Is that right?
My mom was a feminist without even knowing. Like, it's not that my mom said, go and get an education. It was just simply the way that she behaved, in a way that, most mothers were trying to teach their daughters, do not get an education. And if anything happened, like every time a sexual assault happened, my mom didn't say, okay, that's it, you're not going to study. It was more like, let's just deal with it and then go back out there. So she never victim blamed me for something that has happened. She never taught me that it was me wanting an education or me wanting a career that it was causing that. So, especially for somebody who was not taught that, my grandparents weren't exactly pro women studying, and my mom was married off at I think she was barely 16, and she was forced into a marriage with my father.
So I'm curious, because cycles of violence and sexual assault were such a big part of your childhood, unfortunately, and you were sexually assaulted by your grandfather when you were 11, and it was something that was not unusual in your community growing up. Was there a place that you could go to feel safe when you were a child?
I think after my father died, my home, that was the one place, that I am still to this day extremely close to my siblings and my mother. Like, we're I think it was the place where, and I'm glad that there wasn't internet back then. So the abuse, once my father died, as much as we loved him, it is a complex relationship, especially because it's a complex issue, addiction. But it was a place where I could go home, and my father did many things right, which is introduce us to books and to music. So once he passed on, we were, all the siblings just heal each other with books, and just lost ourselves in stories or music. I'm glad for that there was no internet, because the bullies and the abuse couldn't find me at home. So that was a blessing.
I think something important that you're saying is, when you read stories about your childhood, it sounds so traumatic. It sounds like there's so much turmoil, which I think was true, but there's not one side to everything. There's so much that goes into your upbringing. You're talking about how your father was an abusive alcoholic, which, yes, is a huge part of your story. But another part of your story is that he also exposed you to books and music, and that there was a love there. And I think it's important to acknowledge that there are so many different sides to everyone and to every story, right?
Yeah, we have to reconcile. Absolutes are dangerous.